Hey, it's Vaughan in Nova Scotia at westcoatbeltpottery.ca. I just did a Zoom with our Potters group, which sort of zapped out. Just we have a storm going on outside. It's kind of easing up a bit now, but I think the Wi-Fi went out. But anyway, I'm going to do a Zoom. No, I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to show you how to throw 25 pounds of clay into a tall vessel, which I've just done one, which is what I was working on the Zoom behind me. That one is 25 pounds of clay with a 7-pound ball thrown on top. I already have the 7-pound ball right here, which is what I threw in the Zoom. So I'm basically going to try and throw a big piece to go underneath this. This doesn't have a base. You can see the bat through the bottom, so this will be on top. Let's do another one. All right, as if my arms aren't tired enough already. Okay, if you haven't been with me before, we're on the south shore of Nova Scotia, which is northeastern Canada, before you get to Cape Breton and Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're kind of a maritime province. All right. Before I start, I hope you're all in good health and avoiding the treachery of COVID-19. All right. Before I throw a big piece, I'd like to make sure it's as round as possible before I actually spin it. And you damp the wheel head before you throw the ball of clay down on top of it. Okay, so that really makes a lot easier for centering. Centering big pieces of clay involves your entire body pushing down on top of it. All right, make sure you got your tools handy. And here's my Freddy tools. Freddie Moretti made these for me, one of the people who subscribed to my channel. There you go, that's for cleaning up the rim. All right, if I get a rim. Well, I'm counting my chickens. All right. So what I've done is position my wheel so my elbow is pushing against this board here, just so I've got some extra leverage. So when the clay can't push my arm any further, if I, push really, really hard and it does any more, it'll break my arm, I guess, but hopefully not so. But it means that I've got just the right distance to hit. See? It's all right. Now let's get it lubricated. All right. So I'm bringing my arm in and pressing down like that, just to seal it up on the bat, just to make sure it's sealed properly. I'm throwing today on a Brent CXC, which is probably 30 years old and still in great shape. Well done, Brent. Now when you do big pieces of clay, you tend to get a little kind of opening at the top there. So that's why I did that, to try and stop it from forming a little hollow. All right, so now I'm going to try and really push it in. So I can cone it up a little bit. Sometimes I get an audience outside, crows and pigeons. You want to make sure it doesn't fold any clay over here. Whew. Involves a lot of pressure. All right, let's push it back down again. Let's make sure the wheel's going, because I have to stand up for this bit. Now I'm trying not to fold any clay over the top of any other clay, so keep the pressure on that corner. I'm pushing forward to kind of bend the clay over a touch. Use a lot of water up doing something like this. If it starts to drag at all, pull your hand back just a touch. Now we got it close to center. You always drag a little bit of clay off just by the rotation of the clay, of the wheel. You lose a bit of your clay that way. Alright, so I'm doing it with my hands like that to try and stop that corner just over here with my thumbs like that, pressing in there. This hand's on the side and this hand's on the top. But my thumbs are trying to stop a little mushrooming that could happen over there. We're almost there. Wow. Now the bottom I don't want to be too wide. I'm pretty close to center. The bat, the wooden bat that this is sitting on is actually moving a little bit because I'm pressing so hard. The pinholes are always made a little bigger over time. Alright, let's get the foot pedal a bit closer to me. Positioning your body is important. Now, it's pretty close to centered. There's always a little wobble, but you can feel the edge sometimes as you're doing this. Make sure it's wet. And then feel the edge and make sure you got no ripples. If you can feel the clay like rippling underneath your fingers, it means it's not dense enough, so it's a good idea to run your finger up the side and feel for those ripples and press, and you'll pull a little clay out. But it's where the clay is basically, your hands can't cover the entire piece of clay, they're just not big enough. So the clay as you're pressing will squeeze out and maybe overlap a little bit of another piece of clay, and you want to make sure you don't leave any of those in, especially if you're doing things like sinks. Get some lubrication here. I got a better sponge here. That one was too big to hold in my hand. Okay, I've got all those out. You can feel it if you let it spin with some glue. You can feel like ripples. All right, let's get a hole in the top. On big pieces of clay, there's no rushing. It takes what it takes. I'm throwing on a bucket seat at the moment, so it's a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it and then a cushion on top of that. Little bits of clay that come out. You always feel like you're losing your bulk of clay. Oh, I've got a long way to go yet. Just a little bit more. I think I've got about an inch thick in the bottom. On big pots, that's not a bad idea to have a thick base. You're trying to make sure the wall of your pot is not thick and thin, because thin areas heat up quickly in the kiln, thick areas take longer, and then you'll get cracks in your piece because it's uneven heating. Let's have a little look at that. Now, here's a trick. I know how to do this, but if you haven't, I don't really need to do it, I can judge with my eye. But if you get a pin and stick it in the center, put your finger down to where it touches the clay and pull it out, you can see how thick, and if you can see that, the clay is. So that's perfect. And then you got to put your finger down over that hole and kind of compress again to make sure that the hole is blocked up. Now I'm going to push out to kind of widen. Now you judge this just by, you don't want to push too hard, otherwise you'll drag clay off the piece. And then you can come up when you've got your finger underneath it. I pulled a little bit off anyway. I'm worried about that flap, so I'm going to push that back in and work that back down into the ball. Just with my hand, I've rounded that tall flap that was there back into the piece. You don't want to have flaps of clay flapping over the top of each other. The water would stop them from sticking together. I'm knuckle throwing at this point. My fingertips are too weak, so I'm throwing with my knuckles. That way I've got 3 fingers in a row basically on either side of the clay. So like I said, you're easing this, you don't want to rush it. I'm going to push the opening a little further. I still need the base a little wider on this. I'm making large, what would have been big wine urns about 2,000 years ago. Let's have another look at the bottom. Got a lot of water in here at the moment. Okay, the base is perfect. I would say the opening inside is about 15 centimeters across, or 6 inches. Now I'm compressing the base with the sponge between my finger and the clay, just pressing down to really compress that bottom. Make sure there's no weaknesses, especially no air bubbles. But this is new clay, so it shouldn't be. So that's compressed. Now I'm going to do the wall pulling. Knuckles again. Okay. I don't know how many inches we're getting bigger each time I do this. But I'm going to stand up. Get the wheel going the right speed. Ouch. It's been raining here all day and been quite windy at times. I have one pigeon that's sticking with me. The rest must have gone. It's kind of nasty for them to even be sitting out on the railing. I throw food out for them every so often. Okay, so you're making sure you're getting the water all the way down. I'm going to slow it down just a touch. Now I'm throwing with my fingertips. I have more control with my fingertips. Because the wall is getting thinner, I don't need the knuckles to put the pressure on. And you can feel that bump of clay, you can see it, and that's what I'm pushing up higher each time. Okay. Feels big. There's a point where your arm doesn't fit anymore, that's the problem. You've got to make sure that it's evenly wet all the way up. If your hand figures like it just sticks in one place, you will lose the piece. So the inside, I just did that on the outside. There's water on the inside. Yeah, I'm going to sponge it all the way up the wall on the bottom. The water dribbles down from the top, but there's always the bit at the bottom that doesn't get water on it. So just get some water before you do any pull at this point. You're trying to make sure it's evenly sticky, slippery. Now I'm just going to widen it a touch. The wheel may be going a bit fast. So now it's about speed. You don't want to widen it too much because it'll start wobbling. If you get it going too fast at this point, it will spin out of control. So that's why I set the foot pedal before I stood up. So the pull was started at the bottom and continue it right to the top. I'm not pressing hard at the moment. Because it's quite thin at that point. I'm leaving a thick area at the top where I'm going to have two pieces joined together. whoop, got all that clay. Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to drag that much off every pull? I've often wondered if some engineer could figure out how to do this upside down, so the weight of the clay would pull it down taller and taller. If I suggest that to NASA, do you think they'll pay for me to go to into space and throw a pot? Guess they got better things to do. I don't know if I'd want to go anyway. I kind of like green Earth and yeah, I'm old enough to remember Challenger. I was throwing on the wheel when that happened. It stopped me throwing on the wheel, that's for sure. I spent the next few hours just watching TV. One of the memorable points in life. Okay. I'm just sucking the water up at the moment. Now when you throw on a big piece, your fingers are digging in a lot. So basically, there's throwing rings all the way on the inside. Now you can leave those if you want, but I kind of like to just take a metal rib, lightly press to actually get rid of the throwing sharp. It kind of leaves a sharp throwing ring. And we'll never see the inside of this once it's got a top on anyway. Well, I may not make it like a bottle, it may just be a big urn like the one behind me, so probably somebody would get their hands in there one day. But that's smoothed out the inside. Now I'm just going to try and even the wall. So the inside is dry because I just sucked all the water off it. But it's evenly moist, so it's not slippery in one place and dry in the next. It's evenly because I pulled the sponge all the way up, and the metal rib too. I still have flowers in the garden around the studio. So it's October 17th and we haven't had a frost or a killing frost around here. I'm on the water, so it's really maritime, means it's not as cold and not as hot. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to measure in a minute because I've got a piece already thrown, remember. Can you see all this? Yeah. Now I can't join the two pieces together, but I have done a video about joining two pieces together in the past, right? They were 12-pound balls of clay. So this is a big sucker. So let's have a look how big it is. No, actually I need to do the rim at the top. When you're joining two pieces together, it's nice they don't slip off each other, so it's a good idea to flatten the rim at top. Look at that, it's not wobbling up and down at all, so it means it's on center. So I'm flattening the top, and I'm going to do a groove in a minute. Now I've got to make sure it doesn't buckle either, because it's thin underneath that flat area. I didn't pull too much off there. But now I'm just going to make sure that stays flat. And the little groove where the rim of the other one will fit is right in the center of that thick area. And that means when the other piece slots on top, it should fit right in that groove. So I'm going to have to measure these in a minute to make sure they're not on. And then the flap either side is what you've basically, am I going buckled? Nope. It's a good idea to make sure it's not even bending a little bit, because with the pressure downwards it would make that go off. So I have a pretty good groove there, but I'm going to try and make it a bit bigger. I can hear drips coming in the building. This is a really old building, 120 years old, and it rains from side, you know, the wind is going, blowing the rain sideways. Look at that, that's good. Can you see that? Oh yeah, you can see it as it's spinning round. Okay, now let's stop this for a minute. Get that little goober off. Okay. I have another piece right here, so I'm going to measure the outside of it. See if I can pull it in for you to see. Oh. Can you see the, oh yeah, you can just see the top. There you go. So I'm trying to measure the outside edge, right opposite, and it's a good idea to measure it from north, south, east, west to make sure it's not oval. And let's see how close I was without even looking. I think everybody has to send me a cookie because it's just about perfect. Let's do it this way so you can see. Alright, so I am just going to, let's see if I do that, it's going to be right on that inner ring. I need to widen that other piece just a touch, about, I don't know, 5 millimeters, and then it will be perfect. So, tomorrow I will show me attaching these two pieces together. Alright, so what you can see behind me, if I can sit back a bit, there's the other one. So when I attach these two pieces together, I will rethrow to belly them out a little bit more. So I will have two almost the same matching urns, which I will then attach handles to. And I probably will do these as graffito pieces, black and white. So that's another video in the future. That'll have to be a stop motion, I think, whatever they call it, because that takes days to carve a big piece like this. But anyway, there you go, 25 pounds. Come back in view, I guess. 25 pounds, and the other one was 7 pounds. All right, so we got the two pieces. So there you go. That one, it looks big because it's in front of the other one, I guess. But there you go. That's the, how can I do this so you can see it? There you go. There you go. That's the width of it. And when I put it on here, it sits right on that inner ring of clay, and I would like it to be 5 millimeters further out, bigger, so it sits in the center instead of on the inner ring, and that would be perfect. Alrighty, so 30 minutes, oh dear. I'm sorry I wasted a lot of your time, hopefully didn't, but alright, so I'll talk to you tomorrow. Right, bye-bye.